right, I think we're here. Make sure the sound, yeah, it looks like it's working. So the plan for today, I wanted to talk about multi-material printing. We talked a little bit about that sort of when we did the G-code and the Cura interrupt little G-code post-processor to stop a print midway through at some point and change out the filament to a different color. So we did do that, and that's a couple of weeks ago or whatever. That's not really what I'm talking about today. There are other types of multicolor, multi-material printing. What I've got today, I've got two different devices that I'll show you. I won't be able to really use them today, just because one of them is not completely assembled. The one I put up the picture of, the prusa, I got to thinking about that, and when I built the original prusa printer, it took an enormous amount of time, and so I got to thinking, I bet this thing's the same way. So I took it out. My plan was I was going to, just put it together during the stream, but I took it out, and yeah, there was no way I could build it all. So I started building it last night. So you won't get to see a lot of the build. It is right here, right there. Actually, that is the MMU. What's it called? MMU2S. I couldn't remember if it was S2 or 2S. So it's MMU is multi-material upgrade. This one is specific to the, we're frozen, to the prusa. Maybe you could get this one and put it on a different printer, possibly. It does integrate with the prusa's motherboard though, but I think it's more or less a ramps motherboard. I don't know. You might be able to make all that happen. I don't know of anybody who's ever done that, and it is definitely, this particular one is definitely made to go with the prusa printers. There is another style. Let's see if I can get it over here. I'm trying to work on stuff at the same time. There's another one. This one. Let's get this out of the way. There's this one. This is the Pallet 2. I guess it's turned the wrong way. Actually, let's take this cord or tube out of it so that it's not going to get bent up. This is the Pallet 2. Now, there is a Pallet 3 that's been released in the past 6 months, maybe, something like that. Both of these machines are similar ideas. They operate differently, and this one, the Pallet 2, you can attach to any printer. Neither one of them are particularly cheap. I think the Pallet, let's see what the Pallet is these days. The Pallet is from Mosaic Printing, maybe? I don't remember the web page. Mosaic Manufacturing, that's it. Now what they're showing on the screen right now is their newest whole thing. So it's a different deal. We're looking at just the Pallet though. So let's see, the Pallet 3 and 3 Pro are the newest versions. They work the same idea, they just have more filament where you can get multicolor printing. This one has 8 inputs, so the 3 has 8 inputs. The 2, this one, has 4 inputs. So you can input 4 different filaments. They can be different colors. Technically, they can be different materials. The way this actually works, though, it's better if they are the same type of material. I've had the best luck with it when they were even the same brand of material. But the idea for this style is on the front end, like when you're slicing up your parts, you go in and you do, for the pallet, you do 2 different processes. One of them is you could have a model that is split into different pieces, and each piece represents a different color. And then you end up with like 3 different models if you want 3 different colors or 3 different materials. And you overlap those 3 models to make the whole thing. Assign each one of those individual models, one third of the model that you want to print to filament in slot number 1, the middle third to slot number 2, the last one to slot number 3, and you can have 4 of those. So you can have 4 overlapping models. Technically, you can go in there and trick it a little bit, and maybe if you have some colors that only exist in the bottom half of the model, and it changes to a different type of color in the top half of the model, you can switch out filaments so it can look like you actually printed with more than 4 colors. But when you're slicing it, there are 4 distinct models. That's the same way that the prusa is going to work. Also, is that there are 4 distinct models. Each one, well, the prusa has 5 inputs, so there can be up to 5. And the Pallet 3 has 8 inputs, so it can be up to 8. But each one of these models is assigned to one of the inputs on your machine here, the Pallet or the MMU2S. And the Pallet does have the advantage. Also, another way is they have a, I think it's all online. I don't think you can download it, but an online browser-based painter where you can go in and paint individual surfaces, like individual areas of your model, and then it doesn't have to be broken into 4 different models to start with. You can have one STL that you download off of Thingiverse, and you go in and paint on your screen the areas that need to be each color, and it will slice the model to match that. It even has the ability in that same part where you're online and you're editing the model in this browser-based editor, where you can put stamps on it. Like you can create an image and create like a stamp, like a rubber stamp, and stamp it onto your model, and it will print that stamp onto your final actual printed model. So how these two are different, well, that's one way these are different. The Pallet has that. I've never seen the prusa have that ability to paint different surfaces. Maybe it's there and I haven't seen it, but I don't think it exists. I think the prusa goes in with the idea that you've got overlapping models, and each one of those components is a different color or a different material, and you merge them together, and each one of those models gets assigned a different input and printed that way. This one, the other difference is this part in here called the Splice Core. So what this one's going to do is there are 4 inputs and 1 output. The tube that was out here is actually the output. And this little guy right here is a cutter. So one input will come in here. There's steppers. Each one of these inputs has its own individual stepper. And so it'll drive one of them in here into the Splice Core, and it goes over here into this buffer. So it needs some kind of buffer because it does take some time on this one, because what it's actually doing is making you one long string of filament. So out of here will come one long welded together string of filament that you send to your printer. And based on the way you sliced it originally, your printer will know, your printer doesn't actually know. Your printer just prints, and it prints with the filament that you send it. There's a little encoder wheel right here, this thing called the scroll wheel. That's kind of counting the amount of filament that goes out of the pallet. And so it does try to keep it in sync, but your printer just prints based on the G-code it's given. The G-code has been prepared by this slicer that is anticipating, all right, now we need to print with filament number 2. And so it slices in a chunk of filament number 2, the right length, so that when that little slice gets, that slice of number 2 goes all the way through here and out the tube and arrives at the print head, it's now printing that color. So it's a timing type thing. that has to occur. Now, obviously, that can't occur very easily. What if this is a really dark filament? This is a really light filament. They're going to be welded together in here. They're going to be sliced apart, and this welds them together, dark after the light, or whichever order you have them in. And so there's that little bit of transition between the two, where maybe you've got a black color, and the next color you need after that's a white color. That transition is going to be gray of some color, and you don't want that gray in your model. So it will actually go off to the side and print a Purge Tower. And so you end up, when you've printed one of these with this setup, you end up with your model that's hopefully all the right colors in the right places, and you also end up with this block of waste filament that's the purge where all those transitions occurred. So it does work, and I haven't used the 3. This is the 2. I haven't used the 3. I assume it worked slightly better than the 2. The 1 worked much like this one. It wasn't as nice. It was more industrial looking. It's up at school. I don't have it here with me. And it worked okay. This one's definitely better, and I assume the 3 is even better. But like I said, they're not particularly cheap. In fact, I haven't seen the price on here yet. Well, I can add it to cart. Let's see. Yeah, the 3. They're supposed to say Pallet 3 Pro. I'm not sure what the difference is there. Well, this is shipping is what's different. So $700 for $800 for the faster shipping. That's the Pro version. Let's see about the Pallet 3 just without the Pro features. Usually the Pro features are it slices a little bit slower, stuff like that. Fewer inputs. I think it only has 4 inputs, where the Pro had 8 inputs. Yeah, there's only 4 inputs for this one. Let's see how much it is. Still $500 and $600 based on the shipping that you choose. And right now it looks like the cheaper one doesn't even get here until November. All the shipping, worldwide shipping, is really lagging right now, so you kind of know that already. So that's one option, is one of these guys. What I was really going to look at was the prusa. Well, this is the printer. Sitting on top of it is the multi-material upgrade. So still $300. They are in stock and they can ship in 5 days. They're coming from where do they come from? Is it Poland, or I don't remember. They're overseas. I can't remember exactly where prusa is located. I'm surprised it doesn't say on here somewhere. Maybe it's at the very bottom. Czech Republic. So they're from the Czech Republic. So they do ship from overseas. And so not cheap here either. So you really have to know that this is a thing that you have a actual need for, a purpose for, because it's not, your printer didn't cost this much if you have the Ender 3. So it's kind of tough to do that. Now, this particular one, like I said, the prusa one, I've never seen anybody attach one of these to anything other than a prusa. I'm not just saying that you couldn't hack it together, but it's definitely not meant to go that way. So that leaves you with the Pallet, where the cheaper one of those was $500, and you're waiting until November. And those you can add to any printer, pretty much. They have profiles set up for all the popular printers. So it definitely is something that you want to have a purpose for. I just kind of want to give you an idea of what they are, how they work a little bit, and I was looking for here's some examples. See if we can look through some of these. So here's an example of multicolor. Back in the background, back here in the fuzzy part, that's a Purge Tower. Now, the prusa doesn't splice them together. It doesn't melt the strands into one long strand of filament. It just sends them one after the other, slices it. It does have a little razor blade that you put in there, and it slices the filament and sends the next one on. So it doesn't... it still needs a Purge Tower. They have gone in as best they can and try to figure out ways to purge less. So some of the things Obviously, you have to use the prusa slicer to work with this one. And they have some options where you can actually print a usable part out of your purge pieces instead of just a block. It'll just be very multicolored, you know, so maybe something that doesn't matter what color it is, you can print that as your purge. Let's see, where I don't see a scroll button here. I guess I have to, each one opens its own picture. Here's one, a much higher purge, but this one also takes advantage of, it's also purging in the support material, so you can do that. It's going to be waste anyway, so you can purge over in the support material. You still need the purge block. Let's see what else they have here. They have some, here's one of the ones where you're purging into a useful part. So they're purging into the support material here, the bottom, and they still have a little wipe tower at the back, very thin, and then this is a purge gear of some sort, herringbone type gear, and they're purging into that also. So it comes out a really, you know, odd color. It's got pink on the bottom and top, and this brownish mix in the middle. So it's just purge though. So it doesn't apparently to them matter what color it is. They just need the part. So those are things you can do. Let's see what else they have. They have other examples of, you know, multicolor prints. And so the prusa version does have 5 inputs. And so you can count 5 different colors in most of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Scattered throughout the model. Now it does, like I said, it's going to have purge, tower, maybe, you know, here they're purging into these, whatever these might be. And so they're purging into those, they're printing their benchy, they still have a little purge block in the back. So there are ways to minimize the amount of purge. When I did this same thing last year, I didn't have I had the prusa, I didn't actually have it hooked up. But I used the pallet and I printed a couple of things, and it wasn't uncommon that the purge block would weigh as much or even more than the actual thing you were trying to print. So there is the idea that you might end up purging out more material than you actually print with. Now the good news is the purge block is the same if you print 1 of your items or 10 of your items, whatever they are. Assuming they all fit on the print bed, then the purge block is the same no matter what. Because all it does is it purges, assuming all those are the same item. Now if they're different items, then yeah, the purge block is going to be different. But if you put 10 copies of the same thing, multicolored print, then the purge block is going to be the same for those 10 as it would be for just 1 of them. Let's see. I'll show you. Let's look at the prusa one. All right, so you've got the. I don't want to bend up these tubes because I don't have it mounted. All these tubes are going to be. They're just Bowden tubes. They're going to feed our 5 filament strands into this little. Well, you can't really see it in there, but inside here there's a little selector on which one is going to be driven at any given time. And then this little guy comes and chops them off. And I haven't put the output on yet, but there'll be an output tube right here. Oh, it's gotten hung up under the printer. Right here. It's just like all the others, except it's got a little kink in it. And it will go down to our printer. And so these don't get welded together like the pallet do. They are just one right after the other. But it effectively does the same thing. They just don't weld them together. So technically with the pallet, you can pre-make filament and print something later. It's not meant to be used that way. It is meant to be where it is active with the printer while it's printing. Because it does try to track how much filament it spit out, and hopefully your printer has used up all that filament. They don't talk directly to one another, at least the 2s don't. I don't know about the 3. But they infer like I've spent out this much filament, so and it knows how much is being pulled out of it with that encoder wheel. So it kind of has an idea of how much is going to the printer. Let's see. Like I said, I've still got some other things. I'm working on this part right now. Doesn't even look like it would make sense with it. But what this is it's basically a buffer. So the filament does have some amount of time where it has to be processed. It's got to be cut, and the next piece sent in, and so forth. And so it could be that your printer hasn't printed every piece yet, and so there needs to be a little buffer of filament waiting to be printed. And so this guy's a buffer. It's got 5 planes in it here where each of the filament strands can kind of be sent to wait, more or less. So I'm building that. It does, well, all of the prusa kits, I don't know if you've ever gotten a prusa kit before or not, but they all come with little gummy bears, basically, and the instructions themselves. Let's see if I can find an example. All the instructions for these are online, so for any of their printers, so you could go and kind of anticipate what it's going to take to build one of these things. But like, here's what I'm building right now, and at the end of it, it'll tell you how many gummy bears to eat as your reward for finishing that part of the process. I'm actually almost done with everything. I just didn't think you'd want to watch me sit here and put little nuts and bolts together. So I'll go ahead and get it done, so that we can actually look. There's some comments that the buffer's not very useful, and then there's immediately countered by, no, it is very useful. You're just using it wrong. So there's a lot of that sort of thing. I will say another thing about the Prusa printers, just in case you don't know, and you're considering one. The printers themselves and all their accessories do take advantage of printing their own parts. So, like for instance, everything orange is printed on this printer. So this is the printer I plan to put the multi-material upgrade on. So all of this stuff is orange. It's PETG, so it does have a pretty good lifetime. I haven't had to reprint any parts yet. And this printer's, I don't know, it's 2 years old, maybe more than that. It might be older than that, actually. 2 or 3 years old, and I haven't had to reprint anything. Now, I don't keep it where sunlight can get to it or anything, and it's pretty set off to the side, but I haven't had any problems with it. Same thing with the multi-material. It's all printed other than the actual hardware. So technically, you could go in and replace any prints you wanted to, or even try and source all the hardware parts and kind of build your own, because you can get the geometry. Now this part is not printed. This is a probably laser cut steel, 5mm steel plate. Maybe it's more than 5. No, it's 5mm. Well, 5 or 6. It's probably 5. It probably counts as a 5mm plate. So it's pretty rigid. It's a decent printer, but they do cost more. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on them because they're probably not the printer that you have. You probably have the Ender 3 or maybe, the Artillery, one of those printers that you can start out with a lot cheaper, the one that we've been doing. Like I said, our goal is to use that one, most of all the stuff we want to do. I just wanted to go ahead and do some with this multi-material. I want to do some multi-material printing just so you can see it does have benefits, but you really have to know that you want to do something because it's going to cost a good amount of money to go either route. If you already have the Prusa, then you paid a bunch of money for the Prusa, plus its upgrades for the multi-material. It's a little bit cheaper. If you have the Ender or one of those style printers, then the multi-material upgrade is even more expensive. The Pallet is the only one I know of. There might be some others, but I don't know of another one. I only know of these two of these type of accessories. And so you do have to have a really good reason to get into it, or just a bunch of extra money, whichever. So I wanted to give you an idea of what you're in for if you wanted to go down one of these routes. It is a lot of tuning, so it's not quite as magic as it sounds. It's going to slice it up, and the filament's going to come out exactly the right length, and it's going to have this little purge block and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of calibration and tuning to get these, like the results that were on here. These pictures like these, where they don't have color bleed. All these colors are very distinct. That takes a lot of tuning to get that to work. Actually, this one back here must have been printed as a purge block thing, so you can kind of see what happens when you just print it as the extra purge block, but you want it to be a certain shape. Maybe you plan on painting it later, and so you kind of see the difference. So it's not magic. It does take a lot of work to get them to actually go together the way that you anticipate that they're going to go together. But it's really cool. Is it that kind of money cool is the question. Do you have an actual reason to have these multi-materials, or do you plan on selling these things? The first comment, it's good, but it had several problems. Good, but can be great. It's that's the kind of thing where it's both of these, not just the Prusa one, the palette and this one, take a lot of calibration on your printer. You have to really know what you're doing on your printer side of things, so that it's set up well, and then you're coloring on the transitions between the Purge Tower and your print, and all the different colors on your print don't bleed into one another, and so it takes a lot of practice and tuning to get it to do what you want it to do. So let me show you Cura. Get Cura open. I should have already opened it, but I didn't. Let's look at some things in there. Maybe we can find. Oh, I think I have I already have a multi-material model that we can show in there to kind of see what that side of it looks like. I think we can open it in Cura once Cura opens. It's working on it. So you can I try to explain it, but maybe seeing it would be easier. Wow. Almost there. Oh, last time we installed that new motherboard, the SKR Mini E3 version 2. We put that on our Ender 3. In the stream, I didn't put the heat sinks on, so don't forget to put the heat sinks on there. That board is supposed to be okay-ish. It does have a larger heat sink area built into the board, but I still wouldn't run it without the heat sinks on there. So we finally got into Cura. Let's open. I think I have a dragon. If I can find it. Well, here's Pac-Man. He's a simple multicolor one. We can use that. It's fine. So we've got. Let's just open one piece. Actually, we'll get a preview right here, won't we? This is a cool. You can add in a live preview of, it's still in File Manager, of STL files, and so you can kind of see which one you're opening before you actually send it to Cura or whatever. So you can kind of see how his eyes are missing here. Another model is going to be just the eye, the left eye apparently. One of just the mouth, one of just the eye, and I don't know why these are different. Oh, this is just different eye pieces. If you want to print the eye as a like that, or like that one. So if we open one of these, well, let's open all of them actually. Let's just take them all and open those. All right, so they're kind of, you kind of see you've got the eyeball and kind of the iris over here, the body of the ghost, and obviously this is not how they would need to be arranged if you wanted to print, but you could assign each one to its own extruder. Now in Cura, I don't actually remember how to do that. So I may not be able to show you that part in Cura. I might have to open it in the prusa slicer to be able to do that. But what you do is, normally these models, the way they're built, is so that their origins are relative to the original file. So I don't know if we'll be able to merge these together. Let's see. Nope. So when we select them all and merge, they retain their information about where their original origins were. And now they're all, I don't know why he's sunk down in the bed, but now they're all in their right places, except for, I mean, I guess his mouth doesn't look like it ended up in the right place. I actually didn't, maybe I didn't load the mouth one. Did I not load it? I didn't, it was over here. So it looks like maybe these are two different versions. Oh, the mouth is when he's when Pac-Man's eating the power pellet. This shows up. So we could try that one too. So if we load this guy, actually let's get rid of this one first. And now let's load the other one. So you can load all of your individual models. So you could have made these in Mesh Mixer. Maybe just downloaded them like this, but you create the whole model with the intent that you're going to split different parts of it off. If we select all, right click and merge, they end up in their correct spots. Now this one didn't quite look like it ended up in the correct spot, but maybe it did. Maybe the mouth is on the inside, it's just the inside part. And maybe those are just overlapping. They're sunk in. I thought they would stick out, but I guess not. But you assign individual colors to your individual models. Yeah, there it is. So it's just going to create that. And the mouth is in there. You could arrange them however you wanted to if you wanted to poke out. But you assign individual colors or materials or whatever you've got to the individual pieces, merge them all together, and then when it slices them, now it won't do it here because I don't remember how to assign individual extruders in Cura. Well, I don't have a multi-material printer set up in here. That's the problem. You would need, remember when you set up a printer, you pick one and you tell it has multiple extruders. So you could even pick a Creality printer and Ender 3, and somewhere in here, oh, maybe if I pick Ender 3, it thinks it only has one extruder, but you can tell it that you have 4 extruders or whatever. That way you can set up each one of these with their own extruder. But let's look at it in the prusa slicer. It doesn't take nearly as long to load up either. Actually, I didn't want to close Cura. Hold on, let me open Cura back, because there is something I wanted to show you that's not really related to multi-material printing. In case you're not interested in multi-material printing, it's just not a thing that you're going to do. I'll show you something in Cura that you might want to do. And I may not, now that I think about it, I may not have put a setup in here that has multi-material either. But we'll look and see. Where did I put those ghosts? There he is. Oh, we can see. Oh, there's nothing in there. Now, Prusa brings them in already in their correct locations, and you can see over here. Oh, well, you can't see over here. It's way too far zoomed in. Oh, because I've got it maximized. Let me get it where you can see the side. So there in Prusa, you can see how it has each of the pieces separate, and you can assign each one to its own color or extruder over here. You know, you can add different things to it, add different settings to it, but they're individual pieces that you can assign to different, in this case, colors, which sometimes it shows up as different extruders, but what you mean is usually different colors. One thing I will say that may be interesting to people other than printing in multiple colors is there is a use for this type of thing. I don't know if this is the justifiable reason to do one of these or not, but one thing you can do is one of your materials could be a support material. So maybe a PVA filament that is water dissolvable, water soluble. And what you can do then is your supports, or at least your support interface, so the part that touches the model can be printed with that PVA. And then maybe you're printing really complex shapes that just have to have support material, and you don't want to have to deal with pulling all that support material off, or maybe it's really hard to get out because it's inside something. I had that issue with the, I don't see it now, but with the little Raspberry Pi holder for the Octoprint that we put on the Ender 3. I had that issue. There was support material inside there, and it was really hard to get out. The one orientation that I printed it, I actually didn't even end up using that when I printed it on its end, and it worked a lot better. But maybe you have something where there's just not a good orientation, and it has to have support. You can print the support in the PVA material, and then just drop it in some water, and it dissolves all the support away. That might be a reason to get one of these multi-material add-ons. If that's your only thing that you want to do with it, you don't really care with the multicolors having 5 different things, you just really want 2 different things. There are some printers in that same price range. By the time you bought an Ender 3 and a pallet, or a Prusa and a multi-material, that same price range, there are some printers that just have 2 extruders. And so I showed one earlier that was an independent extruder, an IDEX. It had 2 independent extruders. One of those could be your PVA, and the other one could be your filament that you're printing. So you don't get multicolor, or if you do multicolor, you just have 2 colors. But you can have, if that's your goal, there are just printers that are set up that way, and that's a little bit simpler than having to deal with all the splicing and calibrating. It's a little bit simpler to just have 2 extruders that one of them is assigned to print the support, and the other is assigned to print the material. But if you already have printers or a printer and you don't want to get a different printer, then this is a way to do that. And that might be a functional reason to do the multi-material. It's still kind of expensive, but that might be a reason to consider it, other than just, hey, I can print a bunch of colors now. Let me show you what I wanted to show you in Cura. Let's get some part in here. It doesn't matter what it is. Let's just get his body. That'll be a good one. So one thing that you might have seen or might have experienced is you load up the part, the whole tray with different parts. You want to print a whole bunch of these things. You know, let's see. I don't know how many can fit. Got a whole bunch of them on here. And we arrange them. And we're printing along fine. And one of these fails. Maybe this one over here comes off the bed. There's a good chance that they all are going to fail now, because this one's loose and your nozzle's dragging it all over the place. And it's just destroys all of them. And so you quit printing multiple things at once, and you just print one at a time. So that's fine. That's a solution, and it's usually what I actually do. But there is another solution with some constraints, and you can load the models up here. And in Cura, if you type, oh, you're off the screen again. Let me get it where you're on the screen. There we go. If you type in sequential, well, where is it? Oh, sequence, not sequential. So print sequence. There are two options here: all at once, which is what the normal default is. So this is in special modes. It's not one that you normally see. You have to go either turn it on or search for it. So all at once is the default. That's how things normally print. You print the whole tray at one time. But there's also one at a time as an option. And so what that does is, well, first of all, it gave me an error. Maybe I have too many on here. But let's delete some of them. Let's just try 4. Oh, well, that was 3, wasn't it? See how it gives me that little shadow underneath each one? That's the area that I have to avoid to print this one. Let's see if I can get another one. There we go. Now they're not overlapping. There's another one. We can actually put a fourth one in here, couldn't we? Only one model. Now I've also got these as being 2. Oh, these are too tall. So they do have to be short. Notice how my volume is really short right here. I'd need some smaller objects to do this with. Let's get their eyeball. It'll be small enough. All right, so there's the eyeball. Maybe we want to print a bunch of these. So this obviously doesn't work in every case, but it is a thing that in some cases you can do. Not sure why. I wonder if it'll just arrange them. No, it doesn't like to. For some reason, it can't figure out where to arrange them on its own. You have to manually do it. But you could build your tray of shorter objects this way, and what it'll do, as long as you don't have any of these overlapping, get all this out of the way, and they fall under your build volume here. So the build volume is controlled by the height of your gantry, so basically how low your nozzle is. And so this is the default in an Ender 3. Now I guess you could go in and change, really lower your nozzle down somehow, so that the gantry itself, the x-axis bar isn't as close to the nozzle. You know, you raise it up or lower the nozzle one way or the other relative to that bar. Because once you print one of these, it's just sitting on the plate. You're not expected to go remove it or anything. It's just there. And so you print one, and this printer has to still move around, and that bar could knock it off of the plate if it's too tall. You know, if this thing was up here somewhere. So that is a way. If you have multiple objects and they are smallish, you know, short-ish, I guess they could be wide, but short, then you do have this print sequence of one at a time where you can actually go in and print each one individually, so you still get the effect of having the whole tray available to you. Now you have to, they are pretty far apart, so it's not the same as having printing everything at once with all at once. But it does give you the benefit that if one of them fails, only that one fails. It shouldn't affect the others because it's printing all by itself, and then once it's done, the printer will move to another one. It still, I guess, could, you know, hang on to the nozzle somehow, or it could fail that way and get drug over to one of these other places. But it prints all at once, and then it goes to another and prints all at once. So it gives you a little bit better chance that they'll all survive, or at least one of them won't destroy the whole batch. It does have limitations on the number you can put on the board or the bed and the height they can be. But I thought I'd show you that as just an aside in case you aren't really interested in multi-material printing at all. I think what I'll do is I will finish up my multi-material upgrade on the prusa so that next time we can actually see it in action. Hopefully it will be in action. I don't have problems that prevent it from running. But the other thing that you have to be aware of, that I am becoming more aware of here, is that it's going to take a lot of space. So the upgrade itself doesn't take that much space. It's going to sit on top. Well, it's off the screen. It's off the top of the screen. But it's going to sit on top of the printer. But it also has that buffer. So this thing, we got has this thing that's going to sit behind the printer, and then it's got to be 5 rolls of filament. What they do with this one is they give you these little filament stand trays. I haven't put one of them together, but it has ball bearings and little pins that your filament will roll on. They actually look like they'll work okay, but there's going to be 5 of these things back there, so it's going to take an entire table to have this all set up. I've seen some setups where people mount the filament above the printer. I think that's what I'm going to do. So that will take less table space. It'll just take wall space now. But it is going to take a lot of space to deal with all of these different pieces that you're adding on. So you do have to recognize that even the pallet adds the rolls of filament, the pallet itself. The buffer for the pallet is built into it. It's not a very large buffer, so I have had issues where I ran out of filament before it could make enough filament. Since it's actually making it, it's actually welding strands together, then it takes 15-20 seconds, depending on which version you have, to actually make that joint. And your printer could already need more filament before it's made the next joint. So I think that's what I'll do, is I'll try to get this running so that next time we can actually look at it, some print from it, set up a print and actually print something. And I wanted to do that today. It's just I got to thinking that we're not going to be able to assemble the whole thing and get it running. There's quite a bit of assembly. So far I've spent probably 2 hours, and I've got the material upgrade itself built. The buffer is pretty much built. I still need to go in. I need to modify some things on the extruder so that it can accept the filament that's coming to it. Basically, I need a way to put this in there. And there's also, I need to modify the filament sensor so that it knows it actually has filament in it. I have to calibrate it, not modify it, calibrate it. And so I still have some work to do here. So it's probably another 2 hours of doing all of that work and then calibrating to get a print on the printer. So there's drivers to install, things like that to get it to actually work. I need to go into the power supply box back here. Well, not the brain box. This is the power on this side. The brains, and hook up the material upgrade sensors and everything, and the steppers that go with it. They're already hooked up, but there's still a lot to do. So I think in all, it's probably a 3 or 4 hour project, plus then you're calibrating and trying to get it right. So I can't, I don't want to sit here while you just watch me put stuff together. But I think that gives you a decent idea. Maybe this is a little shorter than normal, but a decent idea of what is out there for multi-material upgrades, and if you want to get into them. The pallet is certainly, there's no assembly on that. Basically, you put a tube in the pallet and connect that to your printer, and then there's some calibration that it kind of has built into it, some prints that you print to help it calibrate itself, and then you're off and printing. Prusa is a kit. You can't even buy it assembled, so you do have to build it. So there's hours of building ahead of time. I'm not 100% sure. You know, I'm pretty sure that I've built it correctly, but like I said, those parts, all the orange parts are printed, and there's a little bit of tolerancing issues that I'm not certain are going to work themselves out. So we'll see. Maybe I'll come back later and say, yeah, it was fine. It kind of grew into itself and cleared everything out, but it's a little bit stiffer than I think it should be right now, just based on the tolerancing between the printed parts interacting with other printed parts. But we'll see how that turns out. All right, so I'm going to let y'all go. We do have, before I do that, let's look at anything that's coming up here. Quiz 2 will open shortly. July 28th is when I have it opening. And it's going to talk, I'll give you a list of things that it's going to ask you about. I've noticed that some people still haven't done Quiz 1. Oh, well, I'll log in. Let's check on how Quiz 1 is going. Yeah, there's one that I need to grade. I have it closing today. I actually opened it up a little bit longer, so if you miss Quiz 1, do that very soon so that you get a grade for that. Quiz 2 is going to open next week, and so we need to go ahead and get that done. Those are there is a Quiz 3, so there's a third one at the very end. Quiz 2 will talk about basically some Octoprint stuff. We missed the 2 days of class here with the internet, so Quiz 2 will be a little bit pared down from what it was, but we did do Octoprint. I think there's some mesh mixer stuff that's in there. A little bit of joining. You know, we talked to different ways you could join printed parts. Some questions along those topics. Maybe going back and picking up some of the questions from Quiz 1 also, just because they're normal topics that relate to all 3D printing. Okay. I will see y'all Friday. I technically had resin printing there. We've already done resin printing. So what I think is this will be finish up multicolor printing. So I think that's what we will actually do, is we'll actually have examples, and I'll try to find some other non-multicolor printing topics to put in there also, just so it's not something that you never end up doing. All right, so this will be finish multicolor printing with actual printing examples. All right, I will see y'all Friday.